A heartbroken Mike Ryan is on the way. Chris Cody, look at Chris Cody, big smile on his face, happy for the suffering of Mike Ryan. Put it on the poll at Batard Show, Chris. What was more crack cocaine, Chargers, Browns, or the quad box at the end of the witching hour? I want to also put on the poll, are the Raiders for real? And also put on the poll, is Kirk Cousins good? That Chargers game, we gotta make fun of Mike Ryan because it wasn't that long ago, right, Jessica? Was this last week that he was questioning how good Herbert is?
I mean, it was just the perfect way for the Browns to lose. Justin Herbert had the most. I mean, I have him on my fantasy team, and he probably gave me like 50 points tonight. I haven't even checked yet. It was perfect.
Stugatz, what do you want to say to Mike Ryan as he pops in here? His football team is good. They could beat you a lot of different ways, and I don't think we've seen too many times where the Browns purposely allowing someone else to score a touchdown has been a brilliant play.
Mike had chances to win that game. Like, I guess there's a part of me being a Jet fan that feels bad for him, but it's not going to stop me from laughing at him. Justin Herbert is just unbelievable, man. That guy, and Mike's a week removed, as we just pointed out, from saying, he's kind of good. No, he's great. Justin Herbert is great. And he just beat Mike Ryan's Browns. Oh, poor Mike.
I don't think that Mike is going to be coming in here and allowing people to celebrate his misery. You're going to celebrate that you played very well against
moral victory,
a difficult team on the road, correct? That your 2 losses this year against very, very good teams, barely.
Blew the game, conceded the game on that 3rd and 10 draw. I don't know what we were thinking there. Staley is so smart at messing with the math. I don't know why you run 3rd and 10 there, a draw in that situation. If you're just not going to end up going for it again on 4th down, they just didn't get enough yardage on that 3rd and 10. I'm pissed because Cleveland, it wasn't a storyline going into it. The only storyline surrounding Cleveland was Baker Mayfield, but Cleveland was very hurt. They were down 6 starters, I believe, entering this game. They lost their 3rd corner in the process of this game in Greedy Williams. No Clowney, a rookie left tackle making his first NFL start. It was there to be had. All those things didn't matter. They still had an opportunity to win it, and it's really friggin' frustrating. I know that they started making points that that's not the Cleveland defense. The Cleveland defense had held opponents to single digits. That's not the Browns defense the last 2 weeks. That was a mash unit of Myles Garrett.
You say that, and I understand that 5 weeks in, there are a lot of people who are hurt. I don't know if you saw this. Look at Stugatz laughing.
That quarterback's really good, man.
He is really good, and the Giants are missing. The Giants are really hurt. They're missing 7 offensive starters from the start of the season. In week 4, they lost their best 3 offensive players today, and I think Brandon Staley's my new favorite coach. He went for it on 4th and 2 inside his own 25-yard line, Chris.
He's pulling like a Stugatz where he's flying by every other coach. Like, everyone's like, hey, we should start going for it more often. And he's like, no, I'm going to go for it every single time. It's some of those are like, it's ridiculous. I mean, I get it. I guess if you have Justin Herbert, you can just do shit like that.
Down 14, 4th and 2 inside his own 25. That's insane. That's crazy.
Dan,
what he's doing.
Dan, forget about down 14 inside the 40. Dan, 4th and 2 with that quarterback, you're inside the 50. I don't care what the score is, what point of the game it is. Don't you go for it with that quarterback?
But Stugatz, he was inside his own 25. Inside his own 25. He wasn't on the other team's 25.
And you have to go for it. I'm not certain I wouldn't go for it every time, no matter what the distance was on 4th down with that quarterback.
He is basically. Staley's been doing that. It's crazy.
I think there's the possibility that every team in the league in 10 years is going for it 4th and short all over the field. Because in that game, Mike, did you hear the broadcasters in that game? Early in that game, it was 13-10 Chargers. And the broadcasters are saying on 4th and inches at the 3-yard line, I think you got to kick the field goal here. With the best running game in the league, I think you and Staley's like, bleep off. I'm sorry. The Browns, Stefanski is like, bleep off. I've got to go for this because this is the kind of game it is today.
It was the type of game that you couldn't punt because of how hurt the defense was. The safeties picked a hell of a time to play their worst game of the season. So many mental lapses. I don't know how you lose Mike Williams. The guy's a freaking giant, and he's just there running uncovered in the secondary. And when you finally get a stop on fourth down because Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback, the refs will bail you out. Odell Beckham Jr., you could make an argument that he lost the game early in that first quarter by dropping that 4th and 2 conversion. Just so many moments in this game where the Browns, all they had to do was get one of them, and they would have won this game despite all those injuries, and they just blew it. They let this game slip. I'm so disappointed.
All right, we'll get back to you in a second.
Who's going to be the coach, though? Who's going to be the coach that zigs when everyone else is zagging and just starts kicking field goals at every port and starts punting on 4th and 1 every single time?
Yeah.
Is it Joe Judge? I feel like
Joe Judge.
Yeah.
No, it's Belichick now. His team, I hate watching them. I hate watching the Patriots. Because all they do is kick field goals. Let's talk for a second. Jessica, were you watching the Steelers in the 1 o'clock hour, or were you fixated in what was happening in that Packer game and the Packer-Bengal game, and basically just the insanity of 4 games going crazy at about 4 o'clock?
I was watching the Steelers game against the Broncos. I think you and Stugatz were head-to-head in grid of death for that game, weren't you? Stugatz, I think, came away with the win with the Steelers. Ben didn't look so bad today. This might have been the best the Steelers' offensive line has played this season.
That's what happens when your back up is against the wall. His back was up against the wall.
And I said last week, I think with 1 injury, Ben plays bad. With 2 injuries, Ben has the best games of his life, and he's got a busted hip and a busted elbow and probably a few other busted undisclosed things, and he looked really good. He threw a 50-yard pass on the opening drive to Deontay Johnson to set the tone for the rest of the game. He looked great.
I love the more injured he is, the better he is. But Dan, you can't say he was bad today. He wasn't bad. Ben Roethlisberger was actually good today.
Hold on. Both of you, just hold on, because I'm going to stop you well short of great, given that he threw 2 interceptions that Alexander Johnson dropped, one of which
weren't interceptions.
One of which should have been a pick 6 and would have led to the delightful scenario, and I need to see this before the season's over, of Ben Roethlisberger trying to chase down a pick 6, because that was Marino's last year, and that is where we're headed with the aging of Ben Roethlisberger. That's a totally different game if a linebacker hangs on to a couple of passes, and they were both 4-yard passes. He just threw them right at Alexander Johnson.
I'm certain you'll have that moment, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like, it did happen. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and they got to win against a good defense.
That's not.
And Najee Harris had his coming out game too, Dan. He had 122 yards on 23 carries. Like, the offensive line played really well. That's all the Steelers need. They have a great defense. They just need their O-line to be there to protect Ben and to be able to use the run game. I'm back on the bandwagon, Dan. And my Bears lost, so I'm all on the Steelers right now.
Coming out game. Big day.
What do you mean your Bears lost?
My Bears. Oh wait, no, they won. Sorry, it just felt like a loss.
Okay, good.
It was just an ugly game. When the Bears win, they still lose. That's how I feel about the Bears.
Good recovery. Excellent job by you,
Roy.
Stuttgart School of Broadcasting.
Roy, what were you doing during the witching hour? Because I want to analyze for a second what was happening at the end of the 1 o'clock games. But what did you make of what was happening with the Packers and the Bengals?
I was actually watching the Giants-Cowboys game. I originally picked the Giants helmet out of the bucket of death, which was promptly swapped with Mike at the Ravens on Monday. So I was keeping an eye on that game. I didn't have Red Zone on, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to watch the Packers highlights on that one.
Well, that you answered the 4 o'clock game question. I didn't answer you. Jess has the Bears losing a game that they won. This is what I wanted to do with the late 1 o'clock games, though, because I know a lot of people are going to be celebrating what happened there, but I just want to read to you. And this is what's great about football. It's why football's got the cheat code on this. Because the stakes are so high and because of the salary cap keeping these teams basically feeling very even, this is what you had as a spectacular thing at the end of the 1 o'clock games. You had Lions, Vikings, Pats, Texans, Eagles, Panthers, and Bengals Packers. Here were the scores. Lions Vikings 17-16. Neither one of those teams are any good, even though Stugatz has the Vikings in his top 5 teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Pats Texans was 22-22. Neither one of those teams is any good. That's a stinky score. Eagles Panthers are just okay. Neither one of them has a championship chance. 18-13, and Bengals Packers 22-22 at the end of the game. So you basically got 7 teams playing. Only the Packers are a team that you respect as championship worthy, and yet football's great. Football's great, even though it's low scoring and 7 of those 8 teams aren't any good. It's still football's great just because you got what's happening at the end of that Bengals-Packers game that's crazy.
Yeah, you have that game. Carolina kind of needs a win there. People have money on it. There's fantasy implications. Like, that's why you love it, man. That's why you watch it every single Sunday. That's why the witching hour is the best. Like, there are so many different reasons to love football, and so it gives it to you the most consistent thing on television is the witching hour. Seriously, it's great every single time that it's on, every single Sunday. Consistently. It's great.
Does Mason Crosby do this every year? He has one game every year where he just fucks with you, and he's just like, I'm going to blow this game for you, maybe twice, but then Rodgers will put me in a spot where I can win it for you, and then I will. Mason Crosby, his hair's gray.
I didn't know it was gray before that. That was not something I was aware of. Did Man Campbell cry, Mike?
Yeah,
that is wild.
He was very emotional with the post game, and it's probably the manliest thing he's ever done, Dan. He was in touch with his emotions, and he showed it in front of the public.
Honestly, I feel like the Lions are the worst team in the NFL right now. Like every week, I feel like they're going to do something and they're finally going to like turn the corner, and I'm rooting for them. I actually like want them to be good. Maybe it's the crying or maybe it's just that they actually have some players on their team that I really like, but they're just so close, and yet they're still so disappointing every single Sunday.
Put these on the poll, please, Chris. Are the Lions the worst team in the NFL? And is the manliest thing Man Campbell has ever done crying because he's in touch with his emotions?
I didn't think he could cry.
Do you think it's his first time crying?
It's exactly what he should be crying about if it's his first time crying. Did you guys notice this? I don't know if you felt bad for Mason Crosby, but he had made 27 straight field goals on the road. That's first, okay? Then he misses 2 field goals. There were whatever it was, 4 missed field goals in like 5 football minute period. But he misses 2 field goals at the end of regulation, and then they send him out for the coin toss, and you can see on him, he's broken. Like he's up there pounding, and then he loses the coin toss, and then he misses another field goal in overtime. Like he missed 3 straight field goals after.
Are you saying he should have been stripped of his captain duties? Hey, no more captain for you. Get on the bench.
He didn't make that guy go out there.
He did not want to be captain at that point. He was out there simply pouting, and he walked away from there saying, "Of course I lose the coin toss. Of course I suck."
Mason Crosby is like, we mentioned how his hair is very white now. He is sneaky 7 years younger than Tom Brady. How is that possible?
He looks crazy.
He is like one of the most renowned silver foxes of the NFL. And he's 7 years younger than Tom Brady. How does that happen?
I had Billy texting me that Mason Crosby was in on the fix. Like that's what he was texting me. But Dan, did you think there's no way anyone on that team, as great as Mason Crosby's been, when he lined up for that last field goal, there's no way anyone thought he was hitting it. Like there's no way, right?
That little flag on the end of the flagpole needs to count as part of the flagpole. That's the most ridiculous. I was cheering too. I would have been doing the same thing as that Bengals kicker.
I'd go another step on this. If you hit the flag, it should be worth a touchdown.
Yes.
I'm saying if you are able to hit that flag on the top of the upright, it should be worth. Look at Mike. Mike, you're just busted. This is a bad time to be talking to you, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I'm not crazy about these post-game situations after a heartbreaking loss like that.
Let me get away.
If we only had post games with the people in our cast whose teams have won, then we would never have anyone on the post games because most of us are Dolphins and Jets fans.
Mike, your teams are good. Your team's good, man. What are you worried about? You're fine.
We let him off the hook. We've got one thing on Matt LaFleur. The Packers have a huge problem with Matt LaFleur. I don't trust him at all in these situations. Is he supposed to learn from his previous failings? What was he doing playing for that field goal?
I loved the end of that game so much because you had the Bengals kicker. First of all, McPherson on a 57-yard field goal hits the upright, and that thing would have been in from 70 yards because it was crazy how well he kicked that ball. And then McPherson, and I've never seen this before, he misses the field goal that he thought was the game winner, hitting that flag, and he jumps into his holder's arms, and they're celebrating on the field. And furthermore, he was celebrating before the ball got there, as kickers often do. He was celebrating, Stugotz. He was saying, I know I caught that flush. That's obviously good. I know what a good field goal feels like. And so he and his holder are sitting there celebrating, and they don't notice that they're the only ones on their team celebrating.
It was premature. I was thinking to myself that if the holder knew, like he was going in for the embrace, but the holder knew and then realized it didn't go through, and he backs off, and the kicker just falls on the floor.
Trust fall.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't get that.
You mentioned Tom Brady before, and one of the things to marvel at regarding Tom Brady, as you see with the Dolphins, their season's over because that's what happens when you've got to play your backup quarterback and you're not actually a piece away, right? It happens like what happened to Washington. You're going to be a team that ends up sinking, but because Tua has now gotten hurt in his first 2 seasons, do you guys realize that Tom Brady always plays 16 games except that one season where he got hurt and they changed all the rules for him? Tua's already been hurt more than Tom Brady has been in his entire career. How is it possible that Tom Brady is able to do what he did today? And Greg Cody is joining us now from his hotel room in Tampa, where they beat the Dolphins, and they beat the Dolphins where the Dolphins are best. Their cornerbacks are their best position. It's their strength, and Antonio Brown and Mike Evans just torched them. I know a lot of people are ripping Xavier Howard today. He's like the only cornerback, or maybe there are 2 cornerbacks in the league who have had 2 80-plus games according to the advanced metrics. But Cody, he got scorched today, and they got scorched today.
Yeah, Xavier was very bad. He got beaten directly, one-on-one, for 2 TD passes by Antonio Brown. But in fairness, he was questionable most of the week. He had a couple of injuries he was dealing with, so he wasn't himself. But yeah, I mean, the strength of the team defense is what's been letting them down this year. And Flores said after the game, we did not execute our game plan defensively, which is sort of startling to hear a head coach say that. I mean, they had a plan, they failed at it, and it's like there's no answers right now for the Dolphins.
Wait, there's no plan for that, though. He's the greatest quarterback that's ever lived. He has great wide receivers. Like there's no planning for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions at the age of 44. And it's the second time he's done it this season.
I love that Cody's questioning their plan when their plan is, hey, let's go beat Tom Brady by throwing the ball 10 times to Gaskin. Let's see if we can go into Tampa and just toss it over and over to our running back and see if we can take out Brady that way.
Yeah, but here's the thing. For the first quarter, and I know I'm parsing this in a ridiculous way, but for the first quarter and a half,
they were in it. Say it.
They were in it. They were.
Oh, for the love of God! For the love of God!
No, here's why. Hear me out. Because they opened up the offense in the first quarter and a half. They had 5 completions of 20 yards or more, which they don't do. I mean, they're a dull, constipated offense. And for the first quarter and a half, it looked like they actually had a plan. Jacoby was, at one point, he was 8 for 10 for 119 yards and a TD and 5 completions over 20 yards. I mean, they did have a plan that was sort of working offensively, but then the defense just completely let them down.
All right, this is how we're doing it. We're going to celebrate a quarter and a half of Dolphins football, keeping it close when they lose 45-7.
They won a quarter, Dan. They did win a quarter.
I'm pretty sure Brady was out rushing the Dolphins as a team in like the third quarter.
Right.
And Mike, Jacoby Brissett, when you put him
so
against,
bad, he's so bad.
When you put him against what Brady is doing, all of it looks so slow. It looks like he's covered in quicksand. All of it, the release of the ball, the way he's moving around back there. It looks like Tom Brady is somehow on turbo speed, as Brissett is just on turd speed.
And Romo, I was so amazed to see that Romo and Nance got like I guess CBS 3 weeks ago thought that the Dolphins were going to be better than they actually are, but he exposed himself as someone who hasn't watched a second of Dolphins when he said that they're missing Devontae Parker today, and he's the guy who makes tough catches for them in traffic. And I'm like, you have not watched any Dolphins
in traffic.
If you're saying that Devontae Parker is the guy that makes tough catches in traffic.
Right. Yeah. By the way, Christopher, quit saying the phrase Tony Romo exposed himself. I'm just saying, just quit saying that phrase. Go on, continue.
Mike, what's that stat you just put in the chat on your Browns?
From ESPN Stats and Info, the Browns are the first team in NFL history to lose a football game when scoring 40-plus points with 500 yards of offense and 0 turnovers.
Wow, congrats.
That hurts. Yeah, way to go, Mike.
Yeah, nice. What a distinction.
Did anyone learn today that Mercedes Lewis is still playing? I learned that today.
Yes.
I learned that last week.
Yeah, he came in 5th in the Turkish Grand Prix.
Mike, you didn't enjoy that game? That was such a fun game.
It hurts losing that game. That was one of my favorite games ever when prior to 3rd and 10. Remember how much fun we made of Freddie Kitchens when he ran that draw on Sunday Night Football against the Rams? Why did we do that?
Mike, don't let him do this to you. He used to do this to me with the AFC Championship games of the Jets when they made back-to-back AFC Championship games. Didn't you have fun? At least you're in the game. No, it's not fun. It's not fun losing games that you go into very excited. You have expectations. You think you're going to win. There's nothing fun about that. Like, Mike
come on. Look, man.
No. Mike has a really good team and had a really good shot to beat a good team. And he lost, and he's upset.
No, but they're a good football team. I just said to you, 7 of the 8 teams playing at the end of the 1 o'clock hour don't have any chance. You look at the Browns, and they've got a chance. They go on the road against a quarterback who's exceptional, 2 skill position wide receivers, and a running back who are exceptional. They lose a game because their defense betrays them. We know that defense is good. Myles Garrett couldn't bother Justin Herbert. They weren't getting the kind of pressure on him they normally get. That football team is good. You're allowed to lose a game once in a while.
No, but Dan, when like when the Jets were losing games, they were losing to Brady, they were losing to Roethlisberger, and knowing that they're going to drive the field and rip your heart out, there's nothing fun about that. Like Mike knew the result there probably before it happened. Like he knew Herbert was going to drive the field and win the game. He knew it. He knew it. And that there's nothing fun about experiencing that, you know? At least it wasn't for me.
You can't play against those skill guys with an injured defense. It's hard enough to play against those skill guys when your defense is healthy. Like, that's not the Browns team that we've seen all year on defense. You're allowed every once in a while. You're blaming a 3rd and 10 call. And I'm not saying it's the right call, but Christ almighty, there were 400 plays in that game that went back and forth. And every once in a while, you're going to get stopped on 3rd down.
We had to play a perfect football game, and the stats would tell you that we kind of damn near did, but there were just 3 moments, and that's how good the Chargers are this year. You can't put the referee in a situation where it's a make or break call like that. You can't be dropping 4th down conversions. You can't be drawing up 3rd and 10 in a draw on 3rd and 10. And if you are, you need to go for it on 4th down because the other team sure as shit is going to be doing it. So there were like 5 moments there where just one decision, one player executing better, and they would have won this game. I would say the way that I'm encouraged as a Browns fan is I think when I look at how the Browns have lost this year, still not having played a complete game yet, don't have Jarvis Landry, unsettled at the left tackle position, now injuries on defense. I really think, especially when you take how they performed at Arrowhead, at SoFi Stadium, the Browns have put themselves in a position where they can get better towards the end of the season like they did last year, peak at the right time. And if that's the case, arguably the best team in the AFC.
I am not, be careful with that, Be careful with the best team in the
I said
AFC.
I was careful with that. I said arguably.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
but that's
Very bad
argument.
Well
They
Well
haven't
done.
been
Well done.
they haven't been a complete healthy team just yet this season, and they've lost 2 games that they'll probably look in the mirror and blame themselves for.
I want to ask you guys one by one. I want to go around the room because this happens to me every single year, and I cannot be the only one that this happens to every single year. Roy, did you forget that there was a 9 or a 10 a.m. football game in London today? Did you simply forget?
Yeah, I forget.
I'm not going to ask Stugotz yet because I'm guessing he knows of his Jets. But Jessica, did you forget? Yes or no?
No, I actually remembered, and I remembered because I had to fill out my picks at like 8 o'clock this morning. And I just want to know why we're outsourcing the shittiest possible NFL games to London. Like, they're dealing with Brexit. They have like a whole economic crisis over there, and we're giving them Jets Falcons to deal with.
Dolphins Jags next week.
Chris,
God.
did you? I love today watching the game. They went so much every single time that Tennessee did anything good. The camera was on Urban Meyer every single time, and
he lives and dies with every play.
He
It's
was
crazy.
hands on his knees so much, looking like he was going to throw up. Chris, did you forget that Jets Falcons was happening in London?
Yes, I forgot because
Coach-
we were out late last night at your thing, so I didn't have a kid this morning, so I was actually able to sleep past 9:30. I woke up, I was like, "What? Football's on?"
Wow, I'm jealous. Greg, did you forget? Yes or no?
No, only because I picked the games every week, so I knew. But it was funny to me. It was such a bad matchup that most of the London games are in Wembley, the cathedral of London football and soccer. And this game was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is a total downgrade. So it was appropriate to the matchup.
Mike, what do you got for us on Urban Meyer? Give us all your thoughts. Come out of your pouty stupor and join us over here talking. I mean, you're sitting everything out because all you want to do is sulk about your Browns. Give us what you got on Urban.
I certainly want to talk more about the Bengals Packers. I'll do that tomorrow because throat contusion for Joe Burrow is not necessarily 2 words I ever want to hear together. But let's talk about Urban Meyer, who for the 2nd straight week has blamed other people on his staff for the personnel that's on the field. He says he doesn't micromanage personnel. When he has a game essentially in the balance, he doesn't really check in with who's on the field. And he said that he doesn't practice QB sneaks with Trevor Lawrence. Admitted that Trevor Lawrence isn't good at them, but also admitted they don't practice. So there's no real way for Trevor Lawrence to get better at it. It's a disaster. And I cannot wait to see how that flight back from London is going to go if they lose to the Dolphins.
He might just stay in London.
Yes.
Right. If he's on the flight. Right. If he's on it.
Maybe he has stuff to do there. We don't know. He might stay. It's a long flight back.
It's not something I've ever thought about before, but I asked the question sincerely. Should they be practicing quarterback sneaks? I don't think I want my quarterback's hands and fingers in little piles all the time. I'm not sure how much I want to be practicing quarterback sneaks.
You have to practice quarterback sneaks. What do you mean? You think Tom Brady became the greatest of all time by not working at that?
I don't know. Cody, you tell me. Do you have to practice quarterback sneaks?
You don't, but if you don't, you say you did. So that you know what I mean, as a coach, you can't say we didn't practice that. That's like a cardinal rule. Even if you didn't, you say you did.
Dan, before we went on air here, my dad told me that him and Dave Hyde are going to Mons Venus tonight.
Really?
Wow.
Tell me more. Oh, he didn't want that said out loud, and now
so
it's
glad you did.
Thank you, Chris, for saying that out
Chris.
loud.
All right. First of all, what is this Mons Venus? I have no idea what you're talking about. Second of all, I was on this trip. Dave Hyde was not.
Wow.
Now, I don't want to give him shit because maybe he's got a family emergency. I don't know why he wasn't
Why
here.
would you assume that?
I know, weird.
I mean, because he would normally be here. I hope you're okay, Dave.
I'm sure he's watching. I'm sure wherever he is tending to family matters that he's looking into his into YouTube because he wanted to find out what kind of quotes you got from the Zoom up there in Tampa because you're not allowed in the locker room.
That's right. But we are allowed in the post-game press conference where they bring in the head coach and 8 players of their choosing. Might have wanted to hear from Xavier Howard after the worst game of his career. Didn't get him.
Well, that's got to be a terrible feeling, though. I don't know how much we want to talk about the about the Dolphins, but if you're Xavier Howard and you can't run so well, what you don't want to see is Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Tom Brady. That seems like a real nightmare scenario.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And just parenthetically, Mike Evans is lifting Greg's Lobos to another win this week.
Yeah, very important.
Totally
nice.
Subject. I mean, You're right. Here's Xavier Howard. He's not healthy. He had 2 injuries this week. He was a legit questionable, and yet he's covering like 3 of the best receivers in the league. It's totally bizarre. I mean, this loss certainly was not on him. That's for sure. There was so much to go around.
Does Greg Cody fist pump in the press box when Mike Evans gets a touchdown? How does that? What
of course
happens
he
there?
There's no cheering in a press box, but the guy next to me did hear that Mike. I mean, the Dolphins are losing 105-17, but yet the silver lining is Greg's Lobos are being.
The guy next to you, finish your goddamn thought instead of talking about your beloved Lobos. The guy next to you, what?
What do you mean the guy next to me?
He doesn't remember what he said a second ago.
I think he was starting to say that the guy next to him was interested in his football team, but then he realized that that's a lie. So I think he just punted on that sentence.
He was going to say the guy next to him caught wind that Mike Evans was on the Lobos, and perhaps he cheered in the press box. And that exactly.
I am the only person in the press box concerned about his fantasy team during the game. I will say that.
Dan, you mentioned football earlier, just being football. Dolphins 1-4, but they got Jags Falcons next 2 weeks. I'm staring down the barrel at 3-4.
We're
back, baby. Let's go.
Attaboy.
Yep, totally. Yeah, and after that they have Houston after Buffalo, so they're going to win.
But what about Buffalo? You just like snuck Buffalo.
Well, they're going to lose at Buffalo, but then they're going to roll the other 3. They're going to be 4-5, and hope will be restored.
Are you guys like me that you're super surprised every time Tom Brady gets sacked? Like super surprised. Like every time it happens, I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that at all because he always gets rid of the ball. How did they do that? And it's of course because a defensive tackle gets in there in 1.5 seconds because somebody made a mistake. But you just like, I don't ever expect to get him to see him sacked. It's him and Mahomes getting rid of the ball the fastest now, right? That it's not the idea. I just don't think that that we understand how weird it is as you watch Ben Roethlisberger and Jessica celebrating the fact that, every once in a while he can have a game that's not awful in a league where Davis Mills today threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. To see that a quarterback ages the way Roethlisberger does and 7 years older than Roethlisberger, Brady's putting up 45 points on a Sunday.
He's nearly perfected the game. Like, it's amazing to watch. He gets rid of the ball so quickly, and it's always the right read. It's always to the right person. Dan, he's 44 years old. He has 15 touchdowns. He has 2 interceptions. Like, it's insane. Like, what he is doing is absolutely insane. But, Greg, like, when you watch him, doesn't it feel like that to you? Like, he has perfected playing that position and playing football. No?
And also, Bruce Arians and Tampa Bay have surrounded him with the ultimate security blanket. I mean, and Gronk, his ultimate security blanket, wasn't even playing today. But the receivers he has, and then you have Leonard Fournette, who has a rebirth in his career because everybody's worried about the passing game. I mean, it's and he has a good offensive line. It's the ideal situation for Brady. But the other thing is, at this point in his career, it's almost like it should be illegal to sack Tom Brady. Whenever he's sacked, there should be a flag, and they're going to inappropriate sack of a legendary quarterback. I just don't think that it's what an ideal situation for him to segue into his last years. It's perfect. Perfect.
It should just be illegal for Tom Brady to still be playing. Like, I feel like we've all seen it all. Like, he's done it all. Like, let's just move on. Like, things will be more interesting when he just retires. I feel the same way about Nick Saban at Alabama. I know they lost this weekend, so, you know, it's a little bit of an anomaly. But it's just like, all right, we get it. You guys were the best of all time. No one's ever going to beat you. Like, just move on. Go play golf or something.
Could the owners vote to get Brady out of the league? Like the other 31 owners, just, hey, you're gone.
Enough.
I'm just like, I'm sick of talking about how good this guy is. Like, it's funner to talk shit about people.
There's literally nothing you could show him that he hasn't seen. It's like there's no situation, there's no defense, there's nothing you can show him that he's not seen.
I'm with Chris Cody on this. I go a step further. I think owners should get together and do something like plant drugs on Tom Brady in his car,
At least.
or a weapon,
Or a murder weapon. Yeah.
Well, we don't need him to lose his freedom, just his freedom to play football. It doesn't have to be a murder weapon that you're planting on him.
I feel like they kind of tried something like this with Deflategate and it didn't work.
Yeah, it really didn't.
Mike, I can't believe that we are not talking more about something that I've been wishing for basically my entire life that finally happened today, which isn't merely that the team on offense was trying to not score a touchdown, but also that the team on defense was making sure that the team on offense did score a touchdown, because all of the Browns got together and threw tiny Austin Eckler into the end zone against his will. And it
carried him.
I think Eckler was trying to go to the ground, and they're like, nope, 6 guys picked him up and hurled him into the back of the end zone.
I've been waiting for that situation my entire life. I've always been screaming, let them score. And what do you do when the other team also doesn't want to score? You take matters literally into your own hands and you carry Eckler into the end zone. He was trying to stop and he just assumed that there would be a wall there and he would just kind of fall down. He met a wall and that wall picked him up into the end zone. And then the Browns promptly used 50 seconds of clock to gain 12 yards in the middle of the field.
It's like tired, let them score, wired, make them score.
I've been waiting for that, right? Our whole lives, we've been waiting for the situation where that the defense just allows someone to score. What was it? It's happened a couple of times in recent years in fantasy leagues where people have been all bummed out because their running back, I think it happened with Todd Gurley one time, stops at the 1 or 2 yard line, and it costs people fantasy points. How great is it if you've got Eckler in your fantasy team? You're mad because he just went down early on something that looked like he could have scored a couple of plays earlier. And then all of a sudden you get your, this is Cody, this is in your wheelhouse. You didn't have Austin Eckler on your beloved Lobos that you talked to the guy next to you in the press box in Tampa about?
No, I don't have Eckler, but I got plenty. I got Zeke Elliott, who's kicking ass for me. I got a stacked team. I mean, don't get me started. The Lobos are doing great. The Lobos tonight are going to cinch, they're granted my opponent tonight as we speak has Josh Allen and
you're falling asleep while saying this.
No, I mean, I'm just so excited because I have my closer Monday night, L-Jack. I got L-Jack tomorrow night, so it's going to be fantastic. 4 wins in a row for the Bows.
You sure you don't want to get a mint joke in?
L-Jack. L-Jack.
Yeah, man.
Your dad is tired because he's an old man. He had a late night last night. Then he drove to Tampa in the morning. I saw it on my father. My father last night stayed out late with us. The last time I saw my father, because his voice was on this roast that we did, and so you could hear him echoing throughout this place that we were. And I asked my father, I said, Dad, why did you betray me? Why did you betray me and make fun of me here echoing throughout this place? And he chortled, the money, buddy, the money. And then he ran off, shuffled off. But that's what's happening with you right now, Cody, right? You're just old. You're old and tired because you drove to Tampa when you could have covered this game in your underwear from the office in your home that hasn't been changed since the 1980s.
I actually did cover the game in my underwear, but from the press box. How did your mom and dad take the blue humor the F-bombs flying.
Rumor.
I'm curious about that. Have you talked to him since then?
I'm sorry. I'm laughing at your son.
I know.
My mom was hoping it would be meaner. My mom was hoping it would be. Yeah, my mom was hoping.
Get out of here.
Yeah, my mom was hoping it would be bluer than that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Were you real worried? So let me just get this straight. Greg Cody was like I was when I was a kid, and some sex scene would come on on the television in one of the movies, and you were ashamed on behalf of my parents, or you were uncomfortable because my parents were getting a lot of dirty humor?
A little bit. Yeah. I don't know why, but I was. I also want to say my arch enemy, what's his name? The director there.
Billy Corbin.
Yeah, Bobby Corbin.
Chris,
Bobby.
Chris, put it on the poll, Chris. If someone is your arch enemy, are you not obligated to know their name? What about your arch enemy, Bobby Corbin?
Yeah, I forgot his name for a second. No, I thought he kicked ass. I thought everybody did great. The comedian whose name I can never remember, McGill, of course.
Gene Harding,
who sounds like I said this to Christopher. Doesn't Gene Harding sound like a 1960s baseball relief pitcher?
Yes.
Just the name.
Yes, he does.
It absolutely does. But the whole panel was great. It was fantastic. I had a good time. It lasted way too long. I mean, Jason Jackson and the sheet guy, get the hook. I mean, come on.
Is this the roast of the roast?
yeah.
Good Lord, yes. I'm roasting the roast, which I do on the Greg Cody Show podcast out Monday morning at 7 Eastern time.
Basically just said everything you are like. You just repeated yourself. So you don't need to listen if you're listening to this.
Levitard, you would agree. I mean,
Oh yeah, it was way too long. And the guy who was sponsoring it, that they couldn't take the microphone away from because he was sponsoring it. That guy was what I would call a comedy kamikaze. He torched and sucked the comedy right out of the room, the air out of the room. Mike, before we could even get started. And he's the reason Mike, this is a true story. At the end of the night, because they had to turn the nightclub over and they had to turn it into, a fireworks show.
They hit the music on Dan.
The guy talked so long that they cut my set short.
No way.
Yes.
You got booted by like the exit music?
Yes, I did. I heard the music playing in the middle of my set, and I'm like, really? All right, good night, everybody.
And Mike, Dan did the thing with his hands where he's like, "Oh, you want me to stop music? All right, I'm done." And he just like stopped in the middle of a sentence.
Mike, what the hell's a throat contusion?
So it's a bruised throat, but I mean, we've all had bruises, not necessarily on our throat. We don't go to the hospital for it. So I'm thinking that this is a lot more serious than just a bruise on the outside of his throat. It seems like there might be some internal bleeding around that throat area for him. He didn't miss a snap.
So that's a lot more serious than average hickey, I guess, huh?
You would think so. Yes, I don't know a lot of people who have to go
How
to
many
the
throat
hospital.
contusions did Greg have at Lover's Lane?
None that I can recall. Hickeys were a thing back then. I want to say this because it brings back memories. Back when I was in my high school days, hickeys were a thing, and until you said it, Mike, I don't think I had heard the word hickey for years. Like, is that still a thing?
When's the last time you gave a hickey?
Baby.
I mean, it's been 40 years.
I never understood the appeal.
Yeah.
I know. I never got that.
It
It's
doesn't
like you're a
feel
leech.
good. A hickey doesn't feel good. I can understand it happening by accident, but what is the pleasure derived from a hickey?
It's to look cool though. It's so somebody recognizes it. I remember in high school telling a girl, like, "Hey, can you do this? I want to look cool here. Can you?" Yeah.
Hey, where
Like,
did we get the name
Chris,
hickey?
Chris, you would walk down the hallway like showing.
I need
off,
some
right?
receipts
That's
here.
what-
I need some receipts. Can you
And where did we get the name Hickey from? Like, there's some
I'm
guy
on
named
it.
Hickey. Yeah, you're on it. All right, go ahead. Some guy named Hickey actually did it for the first time. They named it after him or something.
Can you put it on the poll, Chris, please? Does the Hickey have any appeal for you? Because I think that's the way we need to lead into Chiefs Bills here tonight, asking people about the resurgence of the Hickey.
Sports won't stop. I mean, like, leave me alone. I mean, it's been nonstop, and now I have Chiefs Bills I gotta watch.
Oh, stop! You have a bet put on it. Come on.
So much money on the Chiefs.
Mike, what do you have for us on the Hickey front?
I tried to give my wife a Hickey once. All that happened was my gum started to bleed.
Baby.
I don't think you were doing it right.
I also might have gingivitis.
What are you, Rick Pitino?
All right, let's get out of here.